if we could bottle the smell of your grandparents' living room, so I think there's a magic, a potency, a whimsy in it that you could reverse engineer, and it's the next best thing to time traveling a little bit.
You're the first person. So we've done a podcast before where we talked about creativity a couple years ago.
Yes.
I am wanting to kind of get back into podcasting again, just because I'm like, this is my favorite thing to do. Talk to like my favorite people. I mean, like, this is heaven, basically. Like, talking to my favorite people about nerdy things is basically as close as you can get to heaven. It's like, that's just it. I'm like, why am I not podcasting? So the first time that we did it, I had so much fun. And when I'm thinking about what I want this podcast to be about, you were the first person I dialed because I knew that you would say so basically exactly what I wanted I'm like, I want to talk about staying awake, which is kind of my, like, I can fall asleep to myself and drift through life. And you're this person in my life that I think maybe the person who most understands that. Anyway, would be approaching this from like a couple different ways, like me from the fast moving kind of New York business marketing world where I'm always trying to slow down, and your new life in Ireland, which I'm still trying to figure out. But no matter where you go, that problem of falling asleep to yourself and needing to like do spiritual work to stay creative and stay vibrant, that is everywhere. So that would be the concept of the podcast. Anyway, tell me about like inner dandy. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, so being in Ireland now, I've been here for a year and a half, and part of being at a new country, a new home, is figuring out the lay of the land culturally, especially in a different country. So Ireland's one of those countries that they're very inviting to the visitors, but if you're going to stay here long term, there is a motion to the ocean. Living here, I'm realizing, there's some differences. And one of the big differences, especially being American, is that this concept of notions. And so, which would, in an Irish context, as much as an American could describe it, not being Irish, would be someone with ambition. So it's always going to be like the idea of like aiming high, maybe too high. And it's being a little too, and I think a lot of us Americans love Ireland for the agrarian lifestyle that we romanticize about it. So it makes perfect sense. But for me, being over here, I realized, oh man, being even moderately fancy is kind of frowned upon. And it's seen as big notions, notions, So being my inner dandy would definitely be like me leaning into, it's almost more skill set backed up with aesthetics rather than just a hollow aesthetics that it's not a Louis Vuitton bag. It's like knowing how to fence, I guess.
So you mentioned like the Irish culture clash there is like ambition and sort of like wealth signaling. It's like having ambition is one thing, and then signaling wealth, they're tied together. It's like, and I mean, previously we were talking about kind of the sort of disgust with England. I wonder if ambition and wealth signaling and disgust for England is somewhat tied together. Like, do you think that they associate like England with wealth signaling and ambition, and they're like, no, screw that? Or where does that come from? Is that like come from old Gaelic culture, or like parables, or myths, I suppose? Do you know?
Well, first off, yes. Well, I will say this: you're asking the wrong guy because you're asking an American. But as two Americans, kind of like, guess what I learned while I'm living in this country? That's from the space I can share about it. And so, whatever answer I give will be not correct, but it'll be entertaining. But one story in Irish culture, which is essentially, if I can remember it, there is one salmon in one of the rivers that was extra big, and it had all the knowledge of the world. And if you could catch that salmon and eat it, you would get all the knowledge of the world. And so I think either a lord or a king said, "That's my salmon. Let's go for it." So he like commissioned everyone, like, "Let's find the salmon, but if you find it, I'm eating it." And so he had his servant. They caught the salmon of knowledge. They actually caught it, and he told his servant, like, "Cook this thing for me, but don't you eat it. It's mine." And so the servant cooked it, and in the process of cooking, burnt his finger. And as any of us do, when you burn your finger, he stuck his thumb in his mouth briefly just to cool it off, and there's a little bit of the oil from the salmon on his thumb. So ever since that day, all the knowledge of the world went into that servant as opposed to the Lord. And that is why it is the lower culture and the lower class in Ireland that has all the wisdom, and they know what's what. And so the higher you go, you lose, because the higher class was not able to eat of the salmon of knowledge. They're not as wise as those who are low and servants. And so that's kind of a fun little tale to kind of like paint the picture of like where the pride comes from, and why if you have too much notions, it's like tisk tisk a little bit.
That is fascinating. Wow. Yeah, America doesn't have that at all. I mean,
No.
we have, Jesus taught the first shall be last. And there's the famous scene at the Last Supper where he washes the feet of the disciples. And it's this like crazy act of like doing the thing that the lowest of the low servants do. And it made everyone really uncomfortable. And like, as a Christian founded nation, I think we definitely have that in our DNA, but it doesn't play out in culture very well. It's like, no, we signal wealth and we have our notions,
Something I'm curious about.
Yeah.
What is your definition of dandy? I mean, I think you probably had an immediate internal reaction to that sentence or that prompt. What was that reaction, and how would you define it? I'm curious, because dandy is not used very often, so it allows one to kind of paint their own picture of that term, whether it's good or bad.
Well, I think it immediately made me think of the word whimsy, which I think I discovered that word whimsy when we both lived in Nashville. And I was like, that's the word, whimsy. Like, I was just trying to put my finger on this thing, this otherness that I felt like was just that 99% of the world didn't appreciate. It's like the majority of people were just kind of like, I just don't care. Just give me my convenience. Give me my cookie cutter house. Give me my, regularly ordered programming, the food that I always want, the beige walls with no personality, the office building that's just glass. Let's bulldoze everything that's old, everything that has personality, replace it with like something new and is like cheap and soulless. And so I was like, but I am like desperately appreciative of all of those old things. And I was like, why is that? What is that thing? And so whimsy kind of became this like, this word that kind of became that for me. And I feel like dandy is similar, in the similar ballpark, where I'm like, and I like the way that you put it. It makes me think of, and we've discussed this guy before, the Indian guy who works for HGTV and talks about antiques, and he's the rapping mathlete in Mean Girls. Rajiv Surendra is his name, and he loves. It's similar. He's like, I ride a 200-year-old bike that's German, and it's got a like fire. Uh, it's got a lantern that can only be ignited by fire, kind of thing. He has like a deep, deep appreciation for every single thing that is in his apartment on the Upper West Side. And he's replaced everything plastic with glass and antique or porcelain or, clay or something like that. He hand paints his walls. He, painstakingly restores crown molding and gets rid of everything that's just like cheap and ugly and meant to be thrown in the way away, and like replaces it with something that is like a family heirloom type thing. And I'm like, no one does that. Like everyone's just like, just immediate satisfaction now, and just upgrade me, because that's the way we do it. And I'm reminded of his philosophy on life with dandy, and specifically like the way that you put it.
Yeah, I've seen his videos, and there's something about that that feels both like I relate to him so much, but then also it's like, oh no, I'm not special anymore. There's more of us out there in the world. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no, there's people who are doing it way better than I'm doing it.
Yeah. He's a professional for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, he's a pro. He's where we all want
Yeah,
to be.
I know. But yeah, I had a similar reaction where I'm like, this HGTV guy, he's just like putting out this special, like precious thing that I thought I was I thought I was in the 0.0001%. And I think you and I might be there, but Rajiv puts out content in a way that I think a lot of people don't appreciate what he appreciates or what we appreciate collectively, but they still like to watch him because he's an entertaining guy.
Yeah.
But it might make it feel a little diminished. But anyway, I wanted to know a little bit about like what latest activities, we've talked about this before, like how do we maintain like this state of whimsy, awake whimsy dandy, like what practices and what does that look like practically? What kinds of things are you doing right now to maintain a state of whimsical dandy?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm at the point now where in my life where with each passing year, things get only more serious. And it could be because I'm in my mid 30s, and that's just how it is at this point, and it'll arc up less seriousness as I get older or retire. I'm not sure. But right now I really have to like intentionally combat all the utilitarian pulls on me in my day to day by almost suspending my belief and believing that every new interest is its own, and really treat it like magic, like a 8-year-old boy who believes in magic, and just letting myself believe that perfumery is a magic that like the like young wizards of Hogwarts or whatever. It's like to enter that world is to learn how to make the unbelievable believable, or to go from like, I know nothing about perfumery, and I can, at the end of this self-taught lesson via YouTube, have a vial of perfume that I created and speaks about me in ways that commercial perfume can't, you know. And to do that with everything, as distracting as perfume and not practical as perfumery can be, and let it be a sense of like magic and get excited about it as I once did Transformers or Dragon Ball Z. Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's very difficult to do, I suppose, because with the internet, we have like a endless stream of like novelty available to us every day. So to actually do what you are saying, to like choose something and like be excited about it, it's almost like counter science if you have a Twitter feed going. Like, how can you treat perfumery as novel when you have like an RSS feed of like the craziest stuff that's happening every single day, all the time? Do you like refrain from looking at the news, or like is it a selective attention thing? Like, how do you choose novelty?
I think it has to be, at least for me, who suffers from ADHD, I have to use the weakness as its own strength and turn it against itself. Nothing helps me get rid of or like become less distracted by algorithms, like the algorithms feeding me perfume content whilst making perfume. So I think it's like lean in and leverage the fact that
Yeah.
there's literally a video about anything for anyone, and just find the guy who lives in, you know, Bulgaria, who makes his own perfumery, and just go down the rabbit hole and just have that be the content whilst making the, you know, almost like a like body doubling, if you will, with the content, if that makes sense.
Body doubling.
So
What do you mean?
that Oh, body doubling is a term that like people with ADHD or other, just, you don't need to have it, you know, whatever, where you just, it helps having someone in the room or participating alongside you. They don't necessarily need to be teaching you or educating you. So there's virtual body doubling where you can just go on YouTube, search body doubling, and it's just a visual of someone doing something that you can see and feel like there's almost like a second presence in the room, which makes you feel like, oh, I
Oh,
can do a thing because there's kind of someone sitting with me. Um, so a lot of times YouTube channels that educate, and you know, they know more than you, but they don't. They may not be masters, and that's
yeah.
enough. So all doubles as almost a sense of like, we're kind of learning together. You're just the big brother, and you're just like 6 months ahead of where I'm at. You know, whatever, because content is hungry. So a lot of these channels are like, I'm not going to wait till I'm a master. I have to make content now because, you know, you got to feed the beast once a week. So it kind of helps.
That's so cool. That's fascinating. I never heard that term before, but that's probably why uh like working from home is so hard for me or with people with ADHD, and why going into an office is like um you know, there's some real benefits there, just to literally have other people around you that are working, you know, even if they're not working, it it helps.
Something I'm
Yeah.
curious about with you, Josiah, is what works for you or what definitely doesn't work. I think there's a lot of entertainment value in just like,
Yeah.
here's what I know I can't do, you know, or
Yeah.
but either one, I'd love to hear. But maybe like maintain the sense of whimsy or
Mm,
magic, or if we go on the skill route of almost like being a dandy, and it's like
yeah.
an interest or an aesthetic presentation, but with an education to back it up. how do you go about doing that as life gets more and more mundane with each passing year?
Yeah. Well, I think I've been obsessed lately with this like concept where I like how simple this is. There's safety and there's exploration. And like we're constantly kind of doing this. You know, when we feel unsafe, we desire safety and we're not really in explorer mode. When we're in complete safety and we're feeling bored, we're like, no, let's shake things up. We go to an explorer mode. And I find that like when I'm feeling really safe and bored, I really seek out whimsy and I seek out novelty, or I want to be a little unpractical and I start antique shopping and I want to get a tattoo and things like that. And so I get a lot more whimsical in safety and like boredom, I guess. Um, and then, but kind of what you're describing is maybe as you get older, especially if you're trying to plan for children or families or retirement accounts or buy a house or you're maintaining a house, like there's a lot more property to keep safe, metaphorically or literally. So there's much less opportunity to like go into explorer mode, uh, because you're not as safe and bored. You're like needing to maintain a lot more things. And so in childhood, college, and early 20s, like money was rarely an issue. I never really felt unsafe. And I had like many, many years of just trying to get myself into some mischief and or find some like whimsical things. And I was just constantly exploring, and that was part of why I moved to New York City. Was I was like, you're never bored in New York City. There's constantly a whimsical thing just around the corner. Was my perception. That's actually not fully true. There is always something whimsical happening here, but it's not as easy to find as I initially had thought, unfortunately. Natalie might disagree. She's like, you know, really good at finding whimsical things here. But anyway, the safety explorer thing, I think, is my thing. And that's like, that's flow. That's like life happening to me. It's really hard to feel unsafe and to still choose something whimsical. And I think when that is my circumstance, I need someone like Natalie to stand beside me and be like, we're going to go do something completely ridiculous. I don't care
Yeah.
that you're in debt. Like, we got to live life while it's, you know, while we're alive, and let's go. And I kind of need her sense of adventure and her feeling safe and bored to like get me out of the door.
I love that because it reminds me of how like there's some years where I don't remember anything that happened that year. And I need sticky memories for them to last, you know, and that like high whimsy is what makes uh, a memory so sticky. Also, like I don't know, I feel I don't know if it is already have arrived at the dandiness or being a romantic in all of its worst ways or best ways, but like the more I get to know someone, especially you, Josiah, the more I'm like, oh man, if you ever lose your whimsy, man, it's like almost like losing your soul. It just like to the people who care about you, like you break their hearts to be like, oh, it's been 6 months and he's had no whimsy, you know, and that's uh it's for you and I both, I feel like it's like, man, if I can't have it today, at least someone I know can get it elsewhere, you know. And I find out like, man, I'm having a hard week and they're having a hard week and like there's no whimsy going any around anywhere, you know, we're in a drought of whimsy. It really hurts a lot more than thinking like it's just not my turn yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I am curious. In those last year, you sent me a whimsical mountaintop moment when you were at the cliffs and just experiencing this like wild Irish nature that seemed like a whimsical moment for you. Can you describe that? And then I also wanted to know about like what are some other like whimsical moments you've had this year, this past year?
Well, I'll tell you a story that answers both because this happened at those cliffs. Um, those cliffs are 15 minutes from my house. I didn't go. It wasn't like, well, like 5 best walks in Ireland in Cork County. It was just like, oh, that's the close. That's 10 minutes from the house. So
That's wild, by the way. Holy cow.
oh yeah. I mean, we are on an island, so the sea is never that far away for an American context. Being that our country is much bigger. But and side note, I have to say this: one thing that's so beautiful about Ireland, unlike America, they do not develop the seaside. Like there are villages and towns, but for the most part, it's the property that is abuts up straight to the water or the cliffs is still agrarian. It is ag fields. So however it looks today is likely how it looked hundreds of years ago, where people were just doing the same thing. And that
Wow.
is something that as an American, you really appreciate for like waterfront property. Anyways,
Yep.
so a whimsy experience I've had over there at my peace spot, my personal little cliff spot is I was fishing because I'm learning how to do coastal fishing now that I can, and I was about an hour into my fish. I've caught nothing, but again, if you don't use bait, yeah, whatever. I mean, that's its own dandiness. It's just like the romance of like, I'm on the coast, I'm off of the cliff, that thing is optional. And I felt eyeballs looking at me. And I was by myself and I had rock climbed down from a hiking trail. So I know like this isn't like a popular spot. And the weird thing is I'm facing the water and I felt and sensed these eyes in front of me and not behind me. And so I look around and then maybe 10 feet from my little rock I was standing on as the waves are crashing up over me is a sea lion. And it didn't just pop up and then go back down. It was like, hey bud, you're in my house now. You're kind of visit. So he's like, okay, I tell you exactly what it was. It was as if someone parks in your driveway and they're just sitting in their car, and how that would make you go, well, now I can't do anything else, and I kind of have to see what this guy's doing
Yeah.
until they leave again. That's how it was kind of treating me here off his cliff, off of his rock, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just magical to like to not go to a zoo, to not, just to be, truly as it would have been. Time stopped, and to be in that moment is just like, oh my goodness, this is quite. No one's gonna believe it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
people have seen sea lions before. Irish people have seen sea lions before. People will continue to see sea lions, but there's something when that happens to you unexpected in the wild. It feels like magic. It feels like whimsy. You can't tell me it wasn't. And yeah, that was one experience to answer your question.
That's so cool and hilarious. Just like, this is my sun tanning spot. And what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, bud. Okay. I'll have your rock back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, you've kind of mentioned this twice, like, I want to know that you're doing well, so that it softens it when I'm not feeling as whimsical, or if my update's not good. Have you been experienced a drought recently, or was it a long winter for you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that, I'm here studying fine art here in college here in Cork, and I've had a lot of like failed ventures, I suppose, where I learned a lot. You start collecting skill sets the more you try things and they fail. So there's a niceness in it. But what's happened for me recently is I got accepted into an exhibit, uh, which was a big deal. And it was kind of like not only the first time something started going my way is vocationally, but it was kind of the dream. It wasn't a compromised equivalent of fine art. It was fine art, and what really made me so sad was that it happened, and it was just step one for the dream. Uh, it wasn't a big deal, but it was the first taste of like having aimed, having gotten what I wanted, and then tasting how hollow that felt, you know. Um, and it really painted a picture of what every goal achieved might feel like, because the longer you go without meeting it, the more you need that to, to be your everything when it comes. And for just a little taste, really just a teaser of how little it offers and how you're grasping onto water when you get what you think you want. It really like it wasn't as simple as like I like whimsy and didn't have it. It's that the sweetness hurt. The whimsy and the goal and the dream was the thing that harmed me. And it really like put a bad taste in my mouth for the goodness, the striving, the aiming. And it really made me realize I have to kind of like, if I have a need, the external world can't satisfy, that's not a new concept, but to feel it rather than to conceptualize it hits different. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard this. You're not the first successful person to say that. There does seem to be so much like joy and like purpose in the journey. And then as soon as I was just talking to a friend last night who is like a successful business person, and he plays a lot of video games. And he was like, yeah, like in Red Dead Redemption, I set a goal to take over a train, and I filled out a notebook with like attempts. Like, I tried this and this didn't work. I need to get this fast horse. I need to jump from this bridge. I need to kill this security guard. There's this like, and he like tried for a month and then took over the train and then completed his goal and then was like, now what? And crashed the train and never played Red Dead Redemption ever again. And he did the same thing with like 3 other games and was just like, each time it was the same. Like, he would obsess, go on this journey, and whenever he would complete it, he would immediately just put it away. And there's a lot of like, I think, joy in the journey and the striving. But I think if you can like change your aim not towards the destination, but change the aim to the doing, do you think that would help? And what would that look like for you? Like, how can you, is it kind of a vision issue that you were like just obsessing over the gallery placement where you need to like change aim towards painting? Or is it a reception issue? Or like, how are you course correcting?
I'd say I'm trying to figure that out at the moment, but I'm the issue is that if you swing hard in the opposite direction, having learned you thought you've learned the lesson, it doesn't help get you out of bed in the morning, and I need to aim it, and to know to think that it doesn't matter, so just have fun while you do it. It feels like I wouldn't be responsible with treating it that way. I would do less and aim for comfort, which feels almost worse than aiming fruitlessly, or so for me, I'm trying okay. All right, we're getting into some whimsy here. I'm trying to look at examples of dragons or Hercules or mythological metaphors for humans or creatures or beings that kind of just exist in their magic, I guess. Things that don't aim, they just are, it's and I look at like elves in Tolkien's world or demigods, like Hercules, because it's like almost like tearing off the humanity a little bit and tearing off the insecurities that are birthed in a lot of people like me, or sensitive dandies or whatever. And it really is like I'm trying to discover what it is if you like aim, but you're not really like trying. It's like don't try, do. And I'm conceptualizing what that could look like practically. And so those are the questions. That's the direction. uh, no answer. So that's where I'm at. What about you? Yeah, I'm curious
Interesting.
if there's specifics for you on how you would answer that riddle for you.
Well, I've got two pathways that I was thinking about for you. One, I mean, literally what I just articulated for this podcast, like the joy in this podcast is talking to you. Certainly I have thoughts about, like, I guess I don't really have a North Star with this. I don't really think I want fame. I don't really want to have like a big podcast presence. What would be my best case scenario is to just continue to buy myself freedom to be creative in my work, and having a point of view and a perspective buys you, if people have respect for that, um, you're more likely to sell. It's basically a sales tool. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
if I have a podcast that has a few views and listens, it gives me leverage, you know, and I can, like, it's like a ticket into a room that I would like to go in. And if I didn't have the podcast, I can't get in there. But if I do have the podcast, I can go in there. And I guess that's my goal. Um, uh, but that's like way down the road. That's like my I guess that's kind of the North Star. Um, but my purpose right now is to just like have a conversation with you and feel joy in that. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering if you, like, maybe you set your sights on this like gallery in London, and if you were to suddenly like reevaluate and be like, what's a North Star that is like loftier there, and how can I just move the cheese or move the benchmark further down, and then
Mm.
also set an intention for like the doing, and have some kind of like intentionality behind reminding yourself to have joy in the doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think what you're saying is so helpful, so relevant that wherever I land will require some version of that, I think. Yes, definitely. I am curious also on top of that is there's people in the world who have always wanted to be a thing, and then there's other people in the world who their job is just their job. They don't need vocational calling. They don't feel a spirit. They can separate their art from their artist self a little bit more. And I have a harder time with that. And I'm curious for you. Um, for you, collecting skill sets, the act of being the dandy, and like having these interests and passions that you then demonstrate for the universe and the world, you separate Josiah from whatever it is in you that does those things or pursues those things? Or if we remove that part of you surgically, would you think there's no Josiah left? Because I would feel there's no more Harrison left if we remove the art or the pursuit of art. I'm curious for you.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of like the, one of the mystical ties between us.
One of many.
Yes, one of many. Because I very much resonate with that. And that is part of, that's another, said differently, like kind of strategies behind the podcast is I'm like, I have tried working at a corporate agency, doing the cookie cutter thing, and I have experienced what it's like to observe a culture where people completely leave their authenticity at home and put on a fake personality within an office and
Yeah.
say the right thing and quote unquote believe the right thing. They espouse the cultural values of the institution and they follow up and they circle back until they're dead. And like they wanted me to participate in this, and I felt myself like sort of detaching my real self and my fake corporate self. I guess the divine mercy there is that, or the severe mercy or whatever, is that I just wasn't successful at it. I wasn't very good. Like I couldn't do it very well and I didn't last very long there. If I had been successful and had been really well compensated and I grew, like I progressed through that corporate ladder quickly, I think I would be very sad and well paid. Sad and well paid. And I would rather be um, able to put food on the table and happy than like caviar and sad every day. And I just don't think it's really an option for me. Like in my personality is I'm like, I can't really put on that like fake thing. I don't know. There's just not many jobs out there, honestly, where you can be yourself. Most jobs are like you've you've got to play by the power structure that exists, and if you're not good at that, too bad. Like you're not going to last here. This isn't the place for you.
Yeah. That reminds me a lot of you know, how even working the dream gig, even by creating it for yourself, starting your own business, fulfilling your passions to the specificity that you dream of, would equally be in, well, not equally, but it would also be like, whoo, you gotta do the grocery shopping. You have those clients where they're the ones who you just you have to compromise or whatever, you know what I mean? They're
Yep.
like, even in fulfilling the dream, it's not always dreamy. And how
Yep.
it reminds me of how in the Bible, the saints we read stories about, or in any other like religious text, these figures had a life as we would have, for the most part, and we are only like, the thing that was like life changing for them were these very like brief moments. If you apples to apples, the time that's documented that was the impactful time versus just all the other time, it's a very brief moment of their lives. And how that there's a beauty and a tragedy to, like,
Yep.
even doing the thing, even the us and our species who pinnacle these figures for us to model after, even they had only these briefest of moments where the dream came true for them,
Yep.
uh and it's just like very like, whew, man, if you're looking at like what their day was, I'm sure they got annoyed more than they weren't annoyed. And so it makes
Yep.
me just very like, oh man, how do you get the ratio up? Because even as
I
the
know.
best of us, the ratio is so low. Like, how can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, how do you get the ratio up? Or like experience some Zen like appreciation for all the in between. And that is an active daily spiritual practice struggle that I'm going through. Is just like, God, I'm so frustrated. Like, I have tried so hard for so long to like get one of my pet projects off the ground and really make a difference, or something like that. But I am surrounded by people I love, opportunities for fun. I've got, a keyboard with dust on it right here staring at me. I've got, painting supplies in my desk, and I've got writing utensils that I take everywhere and I write. And I don't know, there's so much opportunity for me to just kind of like slow down. And I guess what's funny is I'm like, I want to have success and security so that I can do art unencumbered. And then like, but I've had it accessible to me this whole time. What's ironic is like sometimes you like sacrifice the things that you like want to do in order to have availability to do the things that you want to do or whatever. It's like one of those idiot tests. If you are moving too quickly, you'll miss. But if you can slow down and be like, wait, what's going on? Why am I doing what am I doing? That's been my friendship with you, I guess, is like you help me see the idiot tests quite a bit.
I can't speak to that much. I feel like, as you know, what it is to be human is to almost feel like you're the biggest example of what not to do or what to avoid or etc. But it's as foreign as anything else could be to hear a close friend say that there's some inspiration to be had from their relationship with the self. It's always uncomfortable and beautiful at the same time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I consistently reference you as the biggest creativity cheerleader in my life. And I certainly have had other people encourage me, but this spiritual director, Colin, he's just been such a cheerleader for like my relationship with Jesus. And not only have you been a cheerleader in my life for my relationship with Jesus, you've also been a cheerleader for like the part of me that is creative, and have always been like, hey, don't treat that part of you like shit. Because like in my personal ambitions, I find, unfortunately, it's so easy to be like, creativity, like I know that part of you. It's me speaking to myself, like in the third person, like creativity, you can sit on the sidelines. We've got shit to do right now. It's kind of like mistreating a child or something like that, where you're like, other things are more important than me paying attention to you right now. So just chill out, take a seat, shut up. And I feel like you've always been a strong proponent in my life of like, hey, don't be mean to that part of yourself that's creative. Like, pay attention. And that is deeply meaningful. So,
well, Josiah, I must say that you're one of those people who has an appetite and an interest in most things. Like, it doesn't take much to sell you, and the way you like yes and not just socially, for me in interest, like, but to see your eyes so easily be able to like light up about, just to have anyone be passionate about anything and your response to that is so wonderful to see that because of that in you, it's so easy to be like, no, you're the one who needs to go get into your own equivalent of perfumery or whatever it is, because the people who are going to change the world are going to be the ones who get into perfumery, but not to sell perfume in the commercial perfumery market. It's like, that's how something that's never been done before comes into existence. It is the people like you who are like, that is so fascinating, and I want to do it. Do I even want to sell it? That's not even a part of the equation. And it is there that you like bottle lightning. 20 years from now's Mona Lisa, or whatever it'll
Yeah.
be, and I think if you can not kill that part of you, and you can last the pain of like as I was saying, just failed experiment after failed pet project after another one, that I think that maybe not even in your own lifetime, but someone will dust off your stuff 100 years from now and be like, how does the world not know about this thing?
Yeah. I have no idea what that artifact will be, if it's a smell or a piece of thread or I don't know, something. But how is perfumery going for you, by the way? We've on this podcast, we've not really introduced that as like one of your many intrigues: fishing, fine arts, perfumery. You've done a lot of different things, making your own shotgun shells,
Oh yeah.
vintage guns and things like. But perfumery came alive to you in Ireland because, as I recall, there was a rare seaweed of some kind growing in the bogs that local Irish people were not really touching, but it's actually a really valuable thing. And you've harvested some, and it has a very potent, distinct smell. And so you're able to actually create these really rare and interesting perfumes using the local land around you. Is that kind of an accurate summary?
Yeah, for the most part, I think, as with all good stories and tales that take place in reality, with time and telling friends, the fish gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Like seaweed doesn't grow in bogs; it grows. But at the same time, the idea of like seaweed growing in bogs is like very much like, as it doesn't, but it should. And I think, for me, what you said was perfectly accurate, and just not even for the means of selling or commercializing. I think the motivations are the exact opposite of the process of it becoming integrated with a landscape. When you discover something that's unique about it that you'll never get anywhere else, it really does something about, there's an intimacy involved with creating a relationship with that material, that plant life, that cliff, where the sea lion looks at you, And so I think, to take advantage of the present in the moment, being in this country and finding the things that it has, that you can't get elsewhere, and not cutting a lot of it, but just having a little bottle of that little rarity of
Yeah.
my time in Ireland, that when I need to recall, when I'm in a retirement home, I have this, I dust off my shelf, and there's a little perfume spray of this stinky seaweed perfume that, why would you ever turn into a perfume? And what's the point? And then suddenly the memories flood back. I'm not impressing anyone in an interview. I'm recalling a magic that you had to be there to experience. And so putting that in a small little bottle just for me is definitely the motivation. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, you went ahead of where I was thinking. Like, actually, you were describing like you want to have seasons of magic, and sometimes if you're in a season of building and okay, things aren't safe, we have to establish the safety fence first before we can explore. It's like safety and exploration, like
Yeah.
uh in the years that you've not had many memories, and therefore, or I can infer that there wasn't a whole lot of magic in those years. The sense that's most closely tied with our memory is obviously smell. And so creating perfumes for years is very interesting to actually have like a library of smells that are memories. It's very interesting.
Oh yeah, and if I don't know if I where did you grow up, Josiah? What's the name of your hometown?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
I can guarantee you there's a scent to Little Rock. I mean, you can probably already in your mind, you might have names for the smells, but you can probably recall, you
Yep.
know, I remember what my
Decomposing
grandmother's.
leaves.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, great. Great, great, great. You see, this is the beauty of it is like I can suddenly now I've got three oils that could convey, et cetera, whatever. And we can, I don't believe in time traveling, but I do think it is a form of time traveling to be able to like um the if we could bottle the smell of your grandparents' living room, so I think there's a magic, a potency, a whimsy in it that you could reverse engineer, and it's the next best thing to time traveling a little bit.
Well, it's funny you say grandparents' living room. If I were to commission one perfume of you, it would be not my grandparents' living room, but there's one particular smell that is particularly potent in the summer, I think, in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains where my grandparents live in Loveland, Colorado. I think it's also in Winter Park, but it's like, I mean, it's just, it might be my favorite smell actually,
Mm.
but it just will hit you randomly every now and again when you're out walking in the mountains and those in the foothills and stuff like that. But I've smelled it just this past visit and was like, to your point, just immediately brought back to like a 3-year-old version of myself in Colorado. And it smells a lot better than decomposing leaves. There was a lot of good memories from childhood. Yeah, Little Rock smells like dirt and decomposing leaves. And there's a lot of beauty there. But yeah, the really good smell, I think, is in that like Colorado foothill. It's some kind of cactus or something, I'm sure. I actually don't know what it is,
Mm.
but I, at some point, need to bring you to my grandparents' house. I'll make it happen. I'll get rich and I'll fly you on my helicopter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or you'll get rich and you'll fly yourself there.
yeah,
Um, and I can show you what I mean, because that would be a very cool thing to bottle.
yeah. Especially because I wouldn't want to just capture the memory. I think part of the experience for people in relationship to you, the one recalling, is to hear the tale, not as facts, but almost as your own romantically painting a picture in response. So the art breeds art, breeds art, breeds art, and
Mm-hmm.
to immediately go from being the hands making a thing to then delivering that and then to suddenly be transformed into the audience. I think that's its own. There's a beauty. I mean, it's its own romance to be able to like not just here you go, but like now tell me all about it. Now what does this remind you of? Now I want to hear about it again.
That would be a very cool, like, gallery experience, to have a movie of just like walking in the foothills with like some narration of childhood, and you missed a little bit of the perfume in the room, and you're able to actually like, it's like, this may not hold a memory for the viewer, but you're accessing a memory from someone else. uh I don't, that would be kind of an interesting
Yeah.
experience. Man, I love you so much.
Dude, I love you, man. Talking to you again is like two lighthouses on the opposite sides of an ocean, kind of literally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just great to know that I'm not the last lighthouse in operation, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely not, buddy. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you this past year. I'm always hoping.
Oh no, yeah.
This last year, I was in safety mode, reestablished the fence. The coyotes got in the chicken coop. I need to make sure everything's
Yeah.
safe, uh, rebuild. But hopefully, prayers up that, this company that I'm with right now and some of these projects that I'm selling right now are going to
Yeah.
mend the fences and give me some more flexibility to not just pay for the essentials, but actually, um, do some exploring. And I just can't wait to get there.
Yeah, man. I'll probably be in America sooner or later too. So yeah,
Cool.
it's a race, but
Yeah.
no rush either,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Love you, man. It's so healing to talk to you, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Likewise.
Every friend recalls, I've got business friends, I've got artist friends, I've got dandy friends. You're definitely one of those, but more than the dandiness, you'd be a soul friend,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. That's what comes alive most in me when we chat.
Likewise.
Yeah. All right, bud.
All right. Talk to you
Till
later.
next time. Bye.
Bye.